Before the chilling headlines, before the global outcry, and long before the documentary films that would forever change our perception of orcas in captivity, there was Keltie Byrne, a bright, ambitious young woman on the cusp of realizing her dreams, unaware that she was about to become inextricably linked to a tragedy that would reverberate through the marine park industry for decades. Her story isn't just about a horrific accident. It's about a life brimming with promise, a passion for the ocean, and the heartbreaking intersection of human ambition and the untamed power of the natural world. Keltie, barely out of her teens, possessed a spirit as boundless as the Pacific Ocean she so deeply admired. Growing up in the picturesque landscapes of British Columbia, she developed an unwavering fascination with marine life from a young age. Not content to simply observe, from the shore, Keltie immersed herself in the aquatic world. A natural athlete and competitive swimmer, she was practically born in the water, her powerful strokes mirroring the grace and agility of the creatures she longed to study. Swimming wasn't just a hobby, it was an extension of her soul, a way to connect with the ocean on a visceral level. This deep connection fueled her ambition, setting her on a course toward a career in marine biology. While pursuing her studies at university, Keltie eagerly sought opportunities to gain hands-on experience. This led her to SeaWorld of the Pacific, a small marine park nestled along the scenic Victoria waterfront. Now, SeaWorld wasn't exactly a household name, at least not back then. It lacked the glitz and glamour of its larger counterparts, like SeaWorld. No sprawling stadiums, no dazzling light shows, no meticulously choreographed spectacles. Instead, SeaWorld offered something far more intimate, some might even say deceptively dangerous. Imagine a series of interconnected, relatively small, concrete tanks, starkly contrasting with the vastness of the open ocean. Picture the chilling gray waters of the Pacific filtering through, keeping the temperature frigid year-round. This was the environment that housed SeaWorld's main attraction, a trio of killer whales. These weren't just any orcas, they were powerful, complex, and undeniably wild creatures. There was Tilikum, a massive male weighing over 12,000 pounds, a formidable force of nature confined to a relatively small space. His sheer size was intimidating, his presence commanding. Alongside him were two females, Nootka 4, known for her dominant and sometimes unpredictable behavior, and Haida 2, younger but equally powerful and quick to follow Nootka's lead. The shows at SeaWorld, while popular with tourists, were a far cry from the elaborate performances seen at larger marine parks. The orcas would perform basic tricks, leaping, tail slapping, and responding to simple commands. But the space was limited. The main pool, a mere 100 feet long and 35 feet wide, offered little room for these apex predators to truly express their natural behaviors. It was a bathtub compared to the ocean they were born to roam, and therein lay the inherent danger. The trainers, acutely aware of the orca's immense power and unpredictable nature, maintained a strict policy of no in-water performances. All interactions took place from the safety of the platforms, a conscious effort to create a barrier, a buffer zone between human and animal. Whispers circulated among the staff about close calls, near misses, and the unsettling feeling that these magnificent creatures were never truly tamed, only managed. Stories abounded of trainers being unexpectedly pulled or knocked into the water, of orcas refusing to follow commands, of a palpable tension that hung in the air during every show. Tilikum, in particular, was the subject of much speculation. His immense size and reserved demeanor fueled rumors of a darker, more unpredictable side. It wasn't maliciousness in the human sense, but a primal, untamed wildness that could erupt at any moment. He was a force to be reckoned with, a constant, reminder of the power imbalance between captor and captive. Yet, amidst the inherent risks, Keltie remained undeterred. She possessed a remarkable calm and confidence around the animals, earning the respect of her colleagues. Her strong swimming skills and unwavering determination to build trust with the orcas were evident to all who worked alongside her. She understood the potential danger, but she genuinely believed in the possibility of a meaningful connection between humans and these magnificent creatures. She saw their intelligence, their sensitivity, and their capacity for interaction. Perhaps she was naive. Perhaps she underestimated the profound impact of captivity on their psyche. Perhaps she was simply too trusting, too eager to see the best in these complex animals. Whatever the reason, Keltie's unwavering optimism blinded her to a harsh reality. The bond she believed she had forged was fragile, built on a foundation of confinement and control, and could shatter in an instant. As fate would have it, on a seemingly ordinary winter afternoon in February 1991, Keltie's path would tragically intersect with the raw, untamed power of the orcas she so admired. A single misstep, a momentary lapse in judgment, would place her directly in harm's way, at the mercy of predators who had never truly relinquished their wild instincts. And once she was in the water, there would be no escape. This idyllic dream was about to turn into a horrifying nightmare. February 20th, 1991. The day began like any other at Sealand of the Pacific. The crisp, biting wind whipped off the Juan de Fuca Strait, carrying the scent of salt and the promise of another show. The small marine park, nestled on the shores of Vancouver Island, was a flurry of activity. Trainers prepped equipment, the bleachers slowly filled with eager onlookers, and the stars of the show, Tilikum, Haida 2, and Nootka 4, circled in their enclosure, their massive forms rippling beneath the surface. Keltie Byrne, a 20-year-old, marine biology student and part-time trainer, moved with a quiet confidence. She was known for her calm demeanor and natural affinity for the animals. Today, however, the air felt different, colder somehow. Maybe it was just the weather, or maybe it was an unspoken tension, a prickling unease felt by those who worked so closely with these powerful creatures. The show began on schedule. The orcas, despite the restrictive size of their tank, performed their familiar routines. Leaps, tail slaps, and synchronized swimming maneuvers delighted the crowd. But beneath the surface, something was amiss. Tilikum, the dominant male, seemed agitated, his movements jerky and unpredictable. Haida 2 and Nootka 4 mirrored his mood, their usual playful energy replaced by a restless intensity. As the final act concluded and the applause faded, Keltie, along with the other trainers, began the post-show routine. Buckets of fish were tossed to reward the orcas, equipment was gathered, and the crowd began to disperse. Keltie was near the edge of the platform, perhaps checking a latch or retrieving a dropped item, when tragedy struck. In a moment that would be forever etched in the memories of those who witnessed it, Keltie slipped. The precise cause remains debated, a patch of ice, a stray puddle, a misstep, but the result was undeniable. She plunged into the frigid water, the splash echoing through the near-empty stadium. Initially, there was a moment of stunned silence. Accidental falls were not unheard of, and the expectation was that the orcas would simply back off, allowing the trainer to quickly climb out. But this time, something was different. The water erupted. Haida 2 and Nootka 4, the two females, reacted instantly. Instead of retreating, they surged forward, their massive bodies flanking Keltie. Witnesses described the scene as surreal. At first, it seemed playful, almost curious. The orcas nudged her, pushed her gently, their immense power masked by an apparent gentleness, but the playfulness quickly turned sinister. Keltie, a strong swimmer, attempted to reach the edge of the pool, her strokes powerful and determined. But the orcas blocked her path, their movements becoming increasingly deliberate. They herded her away from the platform, their dark shapes, shadowing her beneath the surface. Panic began to ripple through the remaining spectators. The trainers, initially frozen in shock, sprang into action. Commands were shouted, poles were extended, and life rings were frantically tossed toward Keltie. But the orcas intercepted everything, preventing her from reaching safety. Then, the water darkened. From the depths of the pool, a colossal shape emerged. Tilikum, the largest of the three, the 12,000-pound behemoth, entered the fray. His presence instantly amplified the danger. He moved with a slow, deliberate power, his massive head breaking the surface, his dark eyes fixed on Keltie. The atmosphere shifted from concern to abject terror. The shouts of the trainers mingled with the screams of the onlookers. The pool became a churning vortex of water and frantic motion. Keltie, her face pale with cold and fear, fought desperately to stay afloat. She struggled towards the nearest corner, her fingertips brushing against the concrete edge, hope flickering in her eyes. But a sudden surge of water knocked her back, another orca rising from beneath, preventing her escape. Witnesses later recalled the horrifying sounds, Keltie's desperate gasps for air, the frantic churning of the water, the sickening thud of massive bodies colliding. The orcas worked in terrifying unison, one blocking, the others pushing and pulling, their actions a deadly ballet. Then, Tilikum struck. With terrifying speed, he seized Keltie by the foot, dragging her beneath the surface. The scream that ripped from her throat was abruptly cut short, replaced by the churning chaos of the water. The crowd erupted in pandemonium. Trainers leaned precariously over the edge, desperate to reach her. Keltie surfaced briefly, her eyes wide with unimaginable terror. "I don't want to die!" she cried out, the words raw and desperate, a haunting plea that would echo in the minds of those who heard it for years to come. But the orcas were relentless. They dove beneath her, surged beside her, each time she neared safety. They pulled her back into the center of the pool, further from hope, deeper into their control. Minutes stretched into an eternity. The frantic shouts of the trainers, the horrified gasps of the crowd, the chilling splashes of the orcas, all blended into a symphony of terror. The unthinkable was happening before their eyes. This was not an accident. This was an attack. And Keltie Byrne was fighting for her life against three of the ocean's most powerful predators. The aftermath of Keltie Byrne's death sent shockwaves through the marine park industry and beyond. SeaWorld of the Pacific, once a bustling tourist attraction, became a pariah overnight. The joyous splashes of orca shows were replaced by the deafening silence of public outrage. But beyond the immediate closure of SeaWorld, Keltie's death brought forth a torrent of questions that continue to haunt the debate surrounding orca captivity to this very day. The most pressing question, of course, was why? Why did these intelligent, supposedly well-trained animals turn on their trainer with such ferocity? The initial reaction was to label it a tragic accident, a freak occurrence. But as details emerged, a more complex and disturbing picture began to form. Experts pointed to the inherent stresses of captivity. Tilikum, Nootka, and Haida Sioux were confined to a relatively small tank, a far cry from the vast oceans they were born to roam. Orcas are highly social animals, living in complex family pods with intricate communication systems. In the wild, they travel hundreds of miles each day, hunting, playing, and socializing. In captivity, their natural behaviors were suppressed, their social structures disrupted. Consider the physical constraints. Imagine being an apex predator, designed to swim at high speeds and dive to great depths, confined to a space barely larger than a swimming pool. The constant circling, the lack of environmental enrichment, the endless repetition of tricks. It's a recipe for frustration and psychological distress. But the confinement wasn't the only factor. The training methods used at SeaWorld and at many marine parks at the time were also scrutinized. Some former trainers alleged that the whales were sometimes punished for not performing correctly, further contributing to their stress and anxiety. While positive reinforcement was the primary approach, the underlying pressure to perform, to entertain, to obey, likely took a toll. Then there was the issue of Tilikum himself. Captured from the wild in 1983, he had already experienced the trauma of being torn away from his family. He was the largest and arguably most powerful orca in captivity, but he was also often subjected to bullying by the other females, particularly Nootka. His position within the social hierarchy of the tank was precarious, and experts speculated that this could have contributed to his unpredictable behavior. In the wild, orcas established dominance through complex social interactions. In captivity, those interactions are often disrupted, leading to tension and aggression. Tilikum may have been asserting his dominance, or he may have been lashing out in frustration and confusion. We can't know for sure what was going through his mind in those terrifying moments. But it's clear that something snapped. The lingering questions extend beyond the immediate causes of the attack. Keltie Byrne's death also exposed a culture of complacency within the marine park industry. Despite previous incidents of orcas behaving aggressively towards trainers, safety protocols at SeaWorld were lax. Trainers were allowed to work close to the whales, often without adequate protection. Emergency procedures were inadequate, and the design of the tanks themselves made rescue efforts difficult. Some former trainers have since come forward, admitting that they were aware of the risks, but felt pressured to downplay them. They were told that working with orcas was a privilege, and that any concerns they had were simply part of the job. The focus was on entertainment and profit, and safety often took a back seat. Perhaps the most disturbing aspect of the aftermath was the industry's initial reluctance to acknowledge the severity of the situation. Instead of conducting a thorough investigation and implementing meaningful changes, many marine parks chose to downplay the risks and continue with their operations as usual. It was as if Keltie Byrne's death was a stain to be covered up, rather than a wake-up call to be heeded. This lack of accountability fueled the growing anti-captivity movement. Animal rights activists seized on the tragedy as evidence of the inherent cruelty of keeping orcas in captivity. They argued that these intelligent, sensitive animals were being exploited for human entertainment, and that their well-being was being sacrificed for profit. Keltie Byrne's death became a rallying cry for those who believed that orcas belonged in the wild. It galvanized activists, inspired documentaries, and sparked a global debate about the ethics of marine mammal captivity. While SeaWorld of the Pacific closed its doors, the questions raised by Keltie's death continued to reverberate throughout the industry. The lasting effects of that day in February 1991 are still being felt today. The debate surrounding orca captivity remains as contentious as ever, with passionate arguments on both sides. But one thing is certain: Keltie Byrne's name will forever be linked to the fight for the welfare of these magnificent creatures. Her death served as a tragic reminder of the dangers of keeping apex predators in captivity, and a catalyst for a movement that continues to challenge the status quo. And perhaps, just perhaps, her story will one day lead to a world where orcas are allowed to live free in the vast and boundless ocean they call home. All home.